United States is imposing new sanctions in key sectors of the Russian economy: energy, arms, and finance. The European Union is joining us in imposing major sanctions on Russia, its most significant and wide-ranging sanctions to date.
You heard the man. Barack Obama says he's putting new sanctions on Russia, and the European Union says they will too, even though Europe buys a third of their energy from Vladimir Putin's mega companies like Rosneft and Gazprom. But as Russia-China trade ties deepen, do Western financial sanctions even still pack a punch? Well, joining us now is Jeff Papero, who, amongst other things, is an energy consultant for the Ukraine government. Jeff, welcome to the show. Look, these sanctions are more than nothing. I grant you that. And they are no doubt a political irritant for Putin, and probably more than that for some of the individuals hit by them. But as long as Europe buys a third of its energy from Russia, really sanctions are meaningless. In fact, Europe is lucky that Russia doesn't put sanctions on them.
Oh, I agree. I think the sanctions will probably do very little to sort of trip up the Russian economy. Sure, the bigger thrust will be felt amongst the lower middle class and the people beyond that. I think the people at the top of the pie will have very little impacts placed upon them. Nobody will rebel. There'll be no revolt. The key player here, I think, are the Chinese, because the Chinese are the bankers and the Americans are the bankers, and you've got two bankers gambling on what the Russian economy is going to do because they provide energy to various countries. I think down the road, I think you're looking at China looking at being a very, very large end user of Russian energy. And with the open up of the Arctic within the next 5 to 6 years, and the natural geographic link from Murmansk and the Trans-Siberian Railway, I think you're going to see, China really sort of applying their interests onto geographically what is the best move for them. And right now, I think the Russian economy and the Russian energy sector is the best move for them. And they're the biggest bank in the world. How do you contend with the biggest bank in the world?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're trying to cut off financing for Rosneft or Gazprom, well, I mean, if, like you say, China, for example, is the largest holder of U.S. Treasury bills. Russia,
Correct.
by the way, owns $100 billion of American debt. So it's not like Russia itself is poor, but just on an ad hoc basis, I don't think that Gazprom or Rosneft are going to have any problem if they need $5 or $10 billion. I think China would be all too happy to jump in there and find some place to invest all that foreign currency that they're sitting on.
You're absolutely right, 100%, because the Arctic will present a great opportunity for them in the years to come. And if you recall, when the Russians invaded Crimea, or supposedly invaded Crimea, after the first and second round sanctions were announced, you saw the man from China and the man from Moscow shake hands at a general meeting announcing a $400 billion energy deal between China and the Soviet Union.
I call it the Soviet Union sometimes too, because they sure are acting like it. Let me remind you of something else, Jeff. Until recently, as you know, the West had fairly strong sanctions economically against Iran, particularly against Iranian oil. But China went in and scooped it up at a discount. So while Europe always took some Iranian oil, America and Canada took none, but China grabbed the hat. They said, oh, we'll take that as a discount. So it's not like Western sanctions mean that Russia's out of the only game. A bigger and bigger game all the time is China. And in a way, whatever the West doesn't buy just means China can buy it cheaper. As you point out, that $400 billion natural gas deal. I don't know if the deal is priced right, but it shows that Europe isn't the only customer in town. Last word to you, Jeff. Do you think that China is edging closer to Russia and Vladimir Putin? Do you think China is moving away from the United States? Because really, China gets most of its business from the United States. It's its largest trading partner in terms of two-way trade. Do you think China's getting tougher with America or just friendlier with Russia?
I think China can do whatever they want because they're the #1 banker on the planet. They have the biggest population, they have the biggest manpower in place, and they want to solidify all the natural resources and energy that are going to keep that country sort of moving ahead into the next millennium. And the best way to do it is to go geographically with a country that has the same ideological policies that they do. I mean, they both share the same philosophy, do they not?
I think they do. And you see China, of course, buying up raw materials and mines and oil in places like Africa, the largest purchaser of Sudanese oil. And I should point out, it's no coincidence that China is also Sudan's protector at the United Nations. That's China playing the political, diplomatic, and economic game while Obama goes playing golf. Jeff, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks again, Ezra.